I think there's an argument to be made that Bart of Darkness is the quintessential summer episode of The Simpsons. They did a ton of other great ones, of course, but I feel like this one in particular really captures the spirit of the season. It encapsulates that feeling when it starts to get really hot, things start slowing down, and you're desperately looking for things to do. At least when you're a kid, this is how it is. Bart and Lisa's reaction to getting a pool feels very honest to me and is not surprising how popular they suddenly get. I kinda like the idea of Springfield being so dumpy that one family getting a pool causes the whole neighborhood to show up. Feels very in line with the working class perspective of the show. Poor Marge, though. I really like how they handle both Bart and Lisa in this one, giving Bart the story about social isolation and then giving Lisa the one about sudden popularity. I feel like Bart is often at his best when he's the underdog in a situation, letting him either make observations about how lousy it is or watching him doggedly try to get out of it. With Lisa, they do a good job of letting the popularity get to her head, but still demonstrate that she feels bad for Bart and can empathize with him. I love their exchange that they have in the bedroom, how bitter and deranged Bart is, and how Lisa clearly doesn't know how to pacify him. Bart's play is so silly and absurd, yet feels very true to how bored kids can get sometimes when left to their own devices. I know I wrote some Animaniacs sketches when I was little that I wouldn't want to be seen by my sisters, but now I've probably said too much. The jokes are excellent across the board, featuring a lot of memorable classics. The ice cream and chili trucks, the family inexplicably building a barn without knowing it, Millpool, the Esther Williams homage, you have selected Regicide, Martin's ending song, basically everything about Ned Flanders' fake out at the end. A lot of all-time greats in this episode. Probably my favorite joke of the lot, however, is the classic Krusty bit. Reminds me of those jokes in I Love Lisa, but it's so silly on so many levels that I laugh just thinking about it. I love the idea of Krusty being so old and his show going through so many format changes over the years that he would be discussing a labor crisis with George frickin' Meany. And that Krusty himself clearly hates classic Krusty, but is somehow forced to show it anyway, implying some big behind-the-scenes blow-up about it. It is such a odd and nonsensical hodgepodge of references, it kinda destroys my brain. I admit, one of the reasons I went for this one is because of how hot it was over the weekend, and this one immediately comes to mind. I had a recent request for Bart on the Road, which will be another good summery episode to do in the next few months. If anyone has some good summer requests, let me know in the comments. Maybe something like Camp Krusty, perhaps. Another reason why this one was picked, because I was thinking about how The Simpsons often do episodes that start in one place and go somewhere dramatically different. People make fun of the Act 1 set piece a lot when talking about the show today. So what does Bart of Darkness do so well that it gets away with such a dramatic story shift? Is it just because it's so funny? I think there's a little bit of that, but some of it is the pacing. Act 1 closes with Bart breaking his leg, so his storyline has plenty of time to develop. If the episode were 50 to 75% Bart and Lisa in the pool, and then Bart breaks his leg suddenly and Rear Window happens, it would be too sharp of a shift. This episode lets Bart stew in the background for a while, gradually introducing the telescope in Act 2, and then doing the full shift to Rear Window. By then, the pool story has basically run its course, and it's not really a big problem that it's completely abandoned. I mean, what can they really do with it at this point? Run out the Lisa and Bart popularity story for another 5 minutes? Maybe throw in some more Homer and Marge pool jokes? The concept is a little aimless on its own. While the pool does get the story going, there isn't really an ending to work toward, so I'm glad they pivoted toward the Ned Flanders story in this case. Random aside, but I always associate the Rear Window parody with the one that was done in Rocko's Modern Life. In that example, Rocko witnesses his neighbor, Bev Bighead, murder her husband Ed and then dig a hole in the backyard shaped like him. Turns out she was just dismantling a sculpture and that she was given an Ed-shaped shovel as a gift. Cute episode, one of my favorite Rockos. The Simpsons episode came first and is probably better executed in general, but I always associate them together in my mind. The whole reveal with Ned is probably one of the biggest and most elaborate screw the audience jokes the show has ever done. As I mentioned in my 60-second Simpsons video, basically everything about him implies that he murdered his wife. The furtive way he pulls down the shades, his depression around the kids, declaring she's with God, his creepy stalking around the house with an axe, him, declaring he's a murdiddly-erderer. I love how thorough the writers are with this joke, how they're determined to see this screw the audience joke all the way through. If they're gonna do it, they may as well do it right. Unfortunately, and I wish this weren't the case because of my opening credits, but I don't think there's enough there for me to be able to construct a Simpsons mystery episode about this topic. Maude is clearly seen alive at the end of it, and she is seen on many other occasions until her death in season 11. There isn't enough to latch onto to be able to do a full episode about this topic. Not enough actual evidence there, it would just turn into a bunch of cherry picking of random facts, ignoring every other moment that wouldn't fit. Although now that I think about it, perhaps the Maude Flanders that we saw at the end of the episode isn't the real Maude Flanders. That perhaps Ned Flanders met another woman who looks remarkably like his wife, and he conspired to kill off Maude and marry this new person. He has shown, after all, a predilection for a very specific type. We should also remember that later on, Maude's voice changed significantly. Some say they hired a temporary new voice actor, but what if these episodes are the only ones that take place in the timeline after Bart of Darkness? And what if his Leftorium had fallen on hard times again, and Ned needs some more capital to keep his business running? That's easy enough to fix. Get a life insurance policy on Maude, get her out of the way, marry the new Maude, and none will be the wiser. The only person who will know about it is his second wife. Later on, a perfect opportunity falls into Ned's lap during Who Shot Mr. Burns. Ned Flanders witnesses Homer Simpson shooting Mr. Burns, so he blackmails him. He won't tell the authorities about it, but Homer owes him a huge favor later on, cashed in at Ned's discretion. Unfortunately, Ned discovers that his new wife's voice has started to change. Is she getting tired of the facade, or is she about to blow his cover? So he cashes in his favor with Homer. He arranges a situation where Homer can cause his second wife to be killed off in a freak accident. No one will suspect any funny business because Homer doesn't have a motive to kill her. You see what happened, don't you? Crisscross. This isn't the only Hitchcock parody in this episode, because Second Maude just got strangers on a train. But hey, that's just a theory. A Simpsons theory. I think the summer heat is starting to get to me.